All right, guys, welcome back. So, in this episode, we're going to learn how to use images, how to put in images, how to plug in images, how to create links, how do you create image links. So, we're going to learn some cool stuff in HTML, CSS, and then finally, I want to talk about positioning, right? How do boxes play with each other? So, let's get started. Cool. So, we already have this, which is, it makes us look like this. Let me just close this. It just, we put a box in the center. We have the words hello inside. Let's start using an image. Now, let's not download an image. Let's get an image from online and link it directly to some image offsite. So let me go to Google and just type cat. I'm going to go to images. I'm just going to take any random cat. Actually, this is a good, it's from Wikipedia. So you right click an image and click on open link, actually open image in new tab. And as you can see, you get the entire URL of the image. So we're just going to copy the entire URL. We're not going to download any images. We're just going to copy the URL. And I'm going to put this image in. And the way to do it is to use an image tag. Image src, which is the source of the image. And I just plug in the image. Height equal to 300. Width equal to 400. And I'm going to close the image tag like this. So now if you refresh, you will see this cute little cat here in the dimensions that we wanted, which are not the actual dimensions, but that's okay, right? And as you can see, the way we wrote height here and the way we wrote width here is a little different from the way we wrote it in HTML and CSS. Here there's a colon, and here it's just a dash or an equal to sign. And that's the thing about HTML and CSS, right? They're slightly different. Even though you're doing the same thing, you're doing it in slightly different ways through different languages. So this is something to be aware of. So for now, let me just change the width also to 300, just so we have, a nice little cat in great dimensions. Now let's center this cat, right? I want this cat to be centered. So we'll give this a class, image class equal to centered, right? And now you're going to see me do something interesting. I've created this standard class that I'm going to use called centered, and I'm just going to say, well, margin 0 auto. Right? This just centers everything, right? So whenever I want to use a centering function, instead of me going on again and, creating styles for it all over again, I've just made this basic thing called centered. And now if you refresh this, centered display block. Now the cat goes in the center. What is this display block? Right? What did we actually do when we use display block? Now you have to understand that by default, HTML puts everything in line. So usually in HTML and CSS, and I'm just going to show you this, right? I'm just going to remove the display block and you can see what happens. I'm just going to refresh this page. It goes to the left. It doesn't respect the rules of the margin, right? The margin 0 auto. So display block, and there are many ways to display things in HTML. Display block prevents things from behaving like text. Text can be put next to each other, but with blocks, we want things to be put below each other, which is a standard HTML CSS style. So with images and text, they don't fall on top of each other. So if I went here and I wrote some text, which is hello, and then I went to the next line and I wrote some more text, which is hello again, now you'll see what's going to happen, which is they don't respect, right? They're not respecting the standard HTML rule that things should be below each other. This is because text works inline. There are two ways to display something in HTML. The first one is inline. The second one is block, right? With inline, whether this thing is on the same line or is on the next line, it'll still be shown in the same line, right? Whereas with block, by default, we know they're like boxes, they stack below each other. So I'm just going to delete this, and I've given this image, which used to have a property of inline, the property of display block. And there's this other property called display inline block, which we're not going to use right now, but you guys can Google it. And that's how developers become developers. So I'm going to refresh this. And as you can see, it's now respecting the rules of the margin. It's now allowing to use things like margin 0 and auto. That's because it's a block, right? So we're only able to use auto because it's now a block. So the cat's in the center. Let's do something funky. We can actually give this centered property to everything. Right? We can actually, instead of us having this margin 100 pixels auto here, I'm just going to say margin top 100 pixels, margin bottom 100 pixels, right? And then I'm going to say class playbox, and I'm going to start chaining classes. So I'm going to add the center class to this again. Right? So now that I refresh, as you can see, the margins from here have been completely replaced by the margins from here. Right? That's no good. The margins from one place are being replaced by the margins from another place. So the auto property which we wanted is still coming in, but the top margin has disappeared because what happens in CSS, because it's a cascading style sheet, the second class takes preference over the first one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to write important, right, with an exclamation mark. Important basically means overrule and override every other, anything that affects this. And as you can see here, as expected, it comes down. The margins are now applied. So important allows you to override things even if the order of the class is not good enough. So it's not favoring this one. So this makes sure that this property is expressed regardless of what happens. So we have this going on. We have this image. Now we're going to create a link, right? We're going to create a link before the image. And the way to do that is to use ahref. Actually, why am I wasting time like this? Let me just show you how the pros do it. HTML link property, right? HTML link tag. You can just wait. HTML link tag. HTML link. And as you can see, I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it, which is ahref equal to some URL. Maybe let's send the URL to http google.com, https google.com with the words go to Google. Okay, I'm going to save this. And as you can see, as expected, we get a link which allows us to go to Google, right? So I'm not going to go to Google. I'm going to click back. And as you can see, this looks like a very ugly link. Now what I want is I want to make sure this cat fits inside the link. So let's make the cat itself a link. And the way to do that is to take this A tag here, the closing A tag, which is the tag for link. A tag is the tag for link. And I'm going to close this outside of the image, right? I'm going to remove this text. So now I'm making the entire image a link. And as you can see now, as you hover over it, it's turned into a link. You can see the bottom right. And if I click, we go to Google, right? So this is how you make something called a link block, right? A link block is basically a link, which is an A tag with an image inside it, which allows us to do some funky stuff, right? And with that, you don't have any of the weird, funky properties. So that's it for this episode. We've learned how to make links and how to style them. In the next one, we're going to learn how to have boxes work with each other, because that's a whole new ball game. So catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.